Hi, Joyce at Delightful Quilting and Sewing, a Nolting dealer in Avon, New York. Tonight's Tech Tuesday revolves around something that was posted about a week or so ago about an issue of a broken needle, and then the machine made a funny noise and not sure what it was, but I will tell you what it boiled down to in just a minute. So there's a couple of things that can happen here in the needle area. But first I wanted to talk a little bit about the needles that are used in the M hook, which is what this Pro is. The Pro series can come with either an L bobbin or an M bobbin. This particular one has the M bobbin, which is the larger size bobbin, the larger class bobbin, that holds about twice as much thread as the L bobbin. You can see here I just finished a quilt for someone, and that's what was left on it. So I cut that one pretty close. So the M bobbin takes this type of needle right here, and it is, if we can focus that down a little bit better, there we go. It is an MR needle. MR stands for multi-directional. And the Pro is, any of the M bobbin machines from Nolting are timed with the MR 4.5 right here, which is a size 19 needle. You can also get this in a smaller needle, 4.0 needle. I recommend sticking with the 4.5 and really not going down lower than a 4.0 needle. The L machines, which this fun quilter over here has an L bobbin, and it only can have an L bobbin. It cannot have the larger size bobbin. And just to clarify one thing about whether it has an L or an M, the machines come that way from the factory. You cannot have it go back and have it retrofitted. In other words, you can't get an L in a Pro and then send it back later and decide you want an M. It will not happen, because down in the hook area, it is drilled for the shaft, and where the shaft is placed depends on the size of the bobbin and the hook assembly that's in it. So it's in either an L or an M. It can't be one and then made into the other. So the Fun Quilter has the L class bobbin, which is a little bit smaller bobbin than the M. And the needles that it uses are a size 20 or typically less, an 18, maybe a 16. At the Nolting factory, the L hook machines are timed with a size 20 needle. So you can drop down about one size without usually any consequences with the thread or any issues with thread breakage or anything like that by dropping down one size in needles. The size of the needle, of course, determines the size of the thread that you can carry. And I always recommend staying with either the top size of needle or maybe one size down, so that there is enough carrying capacity in the needle. So in the front of these needles, there's a groove, and this groove is what carries the thread below the surface of the quilt to the bottom of the quilt. And as the needle pulls up, it leaves a loop, and that loop is picked up by the hook assembly, by the rotating hook, to make the stitch. And if there is not enough carrying capacity in this groove to carry that thread below, then that loop is not going to be formed or in the right position to be picked up by the hook, and it will look like a tension problem. So one of the things that people sometimes think is, so if I have an L hook, why can't I just put in the MR needles if they're multi-directional? Well, the multi-directional needles have a little bit different look to them. We'll come back over here to the Pro, and I can show you that. If you look at the needle here, you can see that it bumps out right there on the front of that needle. There's a bump out, and it's just opposite where the scarf indents in the back. So the shaft size here is the same pretty much all the way down where that bumps out, and that gives that needle a little bit more strength, but also the front of the needle protrudes. Do not put an MR needle in your L-hook machine. It's not meant to go in the L-hook machines for the Noltings, and it might actually do some damage to your hook assembly. So don't do that. Stick with a needle that belongs in your machine. And when you buy needles online, if you buy them from our website, they're specifically labeled for the L-hook or the M-hook. There's no confusion. If you get them someplace else, make sure that you are buying the needle that belongs in either your L or your M-hook machine. Now, to address that question that someone had the other day on the internet, and it had to do with a broken needle. She'd broken a needle and she replaced the needle, and after that it didn't work. It made a funny sound, and it was just causing all kinds of problems. And so she posted a picture of it, and immediately I knew what the problem was. Because what was happening, and I'm going to rotate the needle all the way down here to the lowest position right there. When the needle is all the way down, you can only see just a little bit of the tip of that needle below the throat plate at the very top of the hook assembly. And what showed in the picture that she had was that tip of the needle came almost down to the post inside of the hook assembly. So I knew right away that there was an issue up top. And that issue was, when that needle broke, what happened was part of that needle shaft was left up in the needle bar. So when something happens and the needle breaks, you need to double check. If you think that needle isn't going up there all the way, you need to double check. Now, there is a little sight hole on the side right there that you can see it. There's a hole right there on the side of the needle bar assembly. And we're out of focus again. There we go. You can see it right there. There's a little hole right above the thread guide on that side. And if you go around to the other side, you can also see that hole right above the screw that holds the needle in. So just because you happen to see the top of the needle in there doesn't necessarily mean that you're home free. Because if you broke a needle, it could have broken off part of that up in the shaft here. And you try to put the needle in, and the needle is down too far, but lo and behold, it looks like it's in all the way. So make sure when you change your needle, if you took out a whole needle, then you're good. If you took out a part of a needle because you broke it, make sure that you check up in there, and if there is part of that needle shaft up in the needle bar assembly, make sure you use something to get it out of there, because the needle needs to be in correctly in order for the machine to operate. And one good look underneath the throat plate is enough so that you either know that it's in correctly or there is a problem with it. So make sure when you change every needle that it goes all the way up into there. One of the things that I do when I am putting my needles in is I usually put my thumb in the groove of that needle. You want to make sure that that groove is facing dead center, straight towards your face. You want that needle in absolutely straight. You do not want it tweaked to the left or the right in order to make it stitch right. It's designed to stitch with that needle hole directly front to back, and that groove straight facing you, right straight to the front. I know that there's a lot of comments online about tweaking the needle to get it to stitch right. If you have to tweak that needle a little bit one way or the other direction, there is another issue with your machine, and it probably has to do with the timing. So put your needle in right, make sure that it goes all the way up into the needle bar before you tighten it. And one other thing, this screw is meant to have more than finger tight. Once you get it finger tight, take a screwdriver and give another little twist to it to make sure that it is tight and holding that needle up in there securely. So that's it for needles today. And I hope that you've picked up a few tips. One of the things that if you need more information on needles, check out our book, Guide to Quilting with Your Nolting. That can be purchased online. Go to www.delightful-qs.com. Look along the top menu for our online store. And if you have any questions about needles that I didn't cover and that are not in the guide, feel free to send me an email. That's it for this week for Tech Tuesday. I'll see you again next time. Have a great time sewing.